A very warm welcome to all of you watching us today. Now, today we have an exclusive interview with Jason Rajasinghe. Now, he won the Achievement Award, the Outstanding Achievement Award for Lifestyle at the 65th Annual Chicago Midwest Emmy Awards ceremony just a few days ago. So I'm lucky to have you on the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mary. I love for having me. I appreciate it.
That being said, congratulations.
Thank you.
On behalf of ITN, Prime TV and Vasantham TV, we want to wish you nothing but the best.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right, so starting off this award.
Yes.
What does it feel like?
It's awesome. Honestly, it was unexpected for me to wake up. My friends, the producers, and the editors were out there during the 65th Annual Emmy Awards, and they messaged me the next morning saying that we won because I was completely out of it and I just had no clue.
You didn't know?
I didn't know until the next morning where they messaged me and they were screaming in my ear saying dude, we did it. This is the first season of the show Uniquely Wisconsin for the network Discover Media Works, and I was privileged to be a part of this amazing, amazing team. Very young team as well that just took on something that I think the Midwest really hasn't seen of that documentary short form type of content. And the story that we won for was for Little Red Barn, which was a story about a farmer who would take food from his own farm and then create pizzas. Right. And so I think that really helped people kind of see that even though the Midwest is full of farms and stuff, you can really make that type of content very interesting as well. So
why do you think y'all got this award? Was it in terms of the thematic content?
Absolutely.
What do you think was the driving force into receiving this award?
I think the hand-picking these stories are super important. It could be something very simple as, like I said, a farmer that's creating pizzas on his farm, but it's really how you convey that story. And I think our team did a fantastic job. My contribution for this particular show was for the videography. And that was my forte. That is what I'm very good at, my cinematography. Even though I do producing and editing, this particular show, it was my videography skill. And so here I was following this farmer the whole entire day, just kind of filming these different components, enough so that the editors and the producers had enough material to play around with. And so that's what I think translated into that win.
Brilliant. So were you always into filming?
Yes.
What's your story like?
So I've always had a passion for films itself. I went to school here in Sri Lanka as well as in the US, so I've had the privilege of having that duality both in my life. And for me, it was mostly about trying to make this into a career. But I was also very good at fine art. So in school, during my O-levels here in Sri Lanka, it was more me kind of focusing on that craft. And so I got my scholarship to an art school, but I chose not to continue that 4 years of getting whether it was my degree in art, but I really chose to leave that school and pursue my filmmaking career here in Sri Lanka. There wasn't really a starting point, so I didn't know where I would start. I did end up working here, actually, at Prime TV. I had the privilege of working with some of the producers. I would shadow them, watching Kumar De Silva, do his show.
So you started off at ITN?
Yes, I could safely say my first internship, I think, was right here, and I managed to score a spot on a kids show. I think it was a kids show. I can't remember. It was years ago, but it gave me the experience of being in front of the camera and right behind the camera too.
Right. So now you also mentioned that you chose to leave your education aspect in terms of what else you were doing. Yeah. How did your parents react to that? Yeah. So my parents, like every family, your parents are always going to be concerned about your choices in a film career, because there isn't really an infrastructure in place for people to see, how do you progress in this career? It's more like doctor, engineer, and that's a very South Asian thing. They weren't sure at first. My dad wasn't very sure, especially. But I chose to show them, hey, I'm going to take these steps. And I scored a fantastic mentorship under Chandran Ratnam under 2 of his films. And he showed me the film industry and ITN with the TV industry. And then I went on to work for other TV networks as well.
in a very condensed amount of time. So in like a span of 2 years, I got all this experience in education thanks to the current industry that's there. And so every time I went back and forth to the US, like you're going with this experience. You're not going to learn, you're actually going with experience, and you're showcasing your skill and you're gathering information from there, and then you're bringing it back here. So it was this, I learned to lean more into my duality. Yeah.
All right, so now with this award coming into place, how do you plan on using it in the future?
Well, I think really the emphasis and the focus with this win is to prove that Sri Lanka does have that talent. We do have the skill set. I've met so many fantastic filmmakers here that I've had the privilege of mentoring with our internship program at my company, iFilm Sri Lanka. And I've seen the raw talent that moves here. But the only thing that I can say that's unfortunate is that everybody, and I think just not in the film industry, everyone looks at leaving the country to pursue this career. So I need to clarify that my life is based in America and also here at the same time. I've been in the industry for 10 years in Sri Lanka. Yes. I've just opened up the US. The reason is because I want to channel that energy back here into Sri Lanka to foster and grow our youth and give them that opportunity so they don't have to go through the hard work that I had to go through. So just to dial it back as to my experience here when I was interning for Prime TV, I would take the 174 bus. I would take it here to ITN. I would walk up the hill where ITN is. Sometimes I would take a tuk-tuk because the hill was a lot. But it humbled me to actually do the hard work so that people don't need to do that. They could just walk into it. The next generation should easily walk into it and take us a step further in this film industry and creating content and telling our story to the rest of the world.
You know, there is a myth currently in Sri Lanka, you know, during the past year or so, people, mostly of the youth, they think if you leave the country, you find greener pastures, and sometimes they think that's the most suitable idea, but you clearly don't believe in that.
The reality is, it is harder, but if you can stick through, if you can really push your boundaries and get out of your comfort zone, really push through and know that longevity is key more than like instant gratification, like go the 10 yards, like go the full football field. If you can stick through it, you're going to see that you will eventually be a team player and part of this industry growing. And that's what I feel like people should understand. It is not going to be easy, but that choice that you make to stay back and develop something that's bigger than you is far more worth it.
So let's talk a little bit about iFilm Sri Lanka as well.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you have to say about it?
Yeah,
What's the journey like?
Yeah, iFilm, for me to start a company, my dad, he was in the polyethylene industry when we were kids. And
that's a completely different
100%
industry altogether.
There is the word film in so he started at a very young age. So I decided to start my company at a very young age too. So by the age of 19, I was able to start my company, iFilm Sri Lanka, and we've had the privilege of working with the Sri Lanka Tourism Board, with many corporates, and we've learned through that process. So we've grown with these different sectors in Sri Lanka. We've fostered a lot of youth that have come through. Our internship program has shaped a lot of people at the same time. We've been here for 10 years, and we're currently telling a lot of stories, important stories that I feel like can help the perspective of Sri Lanka from not just being a beautiful place, but the intimate, beautiful stories that people don't see every day.
Now, travel tourism is also something that you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, you're a proud Sri Lankan, from what I gather.
Absolutely.
And your goal is to bring in Forex to Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
So how do you use, your skills in bringing tourists into our country?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the film industry has there's this huge opening for us to bring in a new perspective on our country. And that comes with film. There's fantastic people doing like film location services in Sri Lanka, getting films and reality shows to be filmed in Sri Lanka, and I think that's an amazing initiative. But what else can we do that's going to help change people's perspective of Sri Lanka? Not just a filming location, but these stories that come out. So the last film that I think was very popular was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And after that, it was more like this stagnant growth. It wasn't like really moving forward. So I think we have the talent, we have the stories, we have the skill set, we have the potential infrastructure to make new stories and make Sri Lanka look like the next place for a Hollywood film, or even its own industry eventually.
Now that you're in the industry, you have a lot of credibility as well. So let's just talk a bit about what you think we could do as a country to improve.
Absolutely.
The industry as a whole.
Yeah, so my thing is efficiency.
Yeah.
So with my company, iFilm, we keep our teams very small and very tight. The reason because I do believe in scaling. Like this film that I shot about two and a half years ago, we kept the team a bit larger because there were more extras on set. And to manage that, you need a bigger team. But for a majority of the content that we film, and the documentaries, the films, the promo films, the corporate films, we try to keep our team very small. So everyone's doing like multiple tasks, but they're very efficient at it. And that's what we call guerrilla filmmaking. And so my wife and I, we started a company in the United States as well. And so right now it's a very tight team. Like it's just the two of us mostly on set filming this particular documentary called Origin. And you're kind of charging your batteries, you're making sure your rig is on, you're filming, you're editing, and you're handling the entire gamut of a production just by yourself. It's not great for longevity, but it's great for us to just know how to manage something so large with just a very small handful of people.
Now that you're in the global arena, what do you think? How do you think we stand, the Sri Lankan film industry from a global perspective?
Yeah.
How are we doing?
I think the potential is there. We've always had the potential. We come from a very rich history in Sri Lanka when it comes to our media, when it comes to like our politics. We come from a very long line of fantastic stories that we can really ride on. And I think Sri Lanka has the potential. It's just now, is it going to be a priority for the powers may be to really focus and help grow this industry? There are people like me, many people like me, that are ready to put our time and effort into growing it, but we need that support at the same time from the higher ups.
All right, so now in terms of education,
yes.
In film industry, sometimes we see a lot of budding institutions coming out.
Yes.
Sometimes they are not the most experienced in it. Maybe we could implement a way in having credible sources of information when it comes to the film industry, because sometimes some people think you hold a camera and they think, okay, you're a professional filmmaker, but there's more to it, isn't it?
The beautiful thing about Sri Lanka is you can do anything you need to. You can do anything you want if you choose to do it. Like that's why I think there's an influx in people creating content, and I think that's great. But how do we harness that and shape it?
Exactly.
And specify it instead of like it just like being dispersed all over. So
have a niche.
Yes, exactly. And then you kind of like shape and mold them into like these people that can tell stronger, powerful stories. So we don't need to bring people. I mean, I love when we bring foreign crews to tell some campaigns, but I think the goal is that can this fully, like our next campaign for Sri Lanka tourism, or whether it's like the next airline commercial, be fully told by a fully fledged Sri Lankan team. That's the goal. Right.
So now through iFilm Sri Lanka, how do you plan on enhancing skill development to the Sri Lankan youth? Absolutely. I know that you all do a lot of internships as well.
That's exactly it. The internship program for us is really our focus, is how do we get people in, and in a short amount of time, in the span of 2 to 3 months, they get all of the downloads, all of the information that they need to continue with us, which would be ideal, and help us grow, because then we have like a team that understands how we roll. Or they have the skill set to expand and kind of disperse that information so that there's more people partaking in the system. I'm not for gatekeeping. The point of me starting the company was not to gatekeep information, it was to give it out freely. But for them also to kind of contribute at the same time.
All right. You're also working on your own documentary called The Origin.
Yeah.
What's the story behind it?
So Origin is, it's a fantastic documentary. One of the things my wife and I focused on when we just travel back and forth to the US is the food. The food always feels different, and when we're in Sri Lanka, like we know where our food comes from. You know that, like if you chose to know, you know where your farm is, you know like where you're sourcing your beef from, you know where you're sourcing all these different things. But America, it's so systemized that people are so disconnected from their food system, and now that Western problem is also slowly becoming a problem here in South Asia as well. Like if I was to ask you to close your eyes and like think about the families that brought the food to your plate, or where your food comes from, it'll be very hard for you to connect with it, right? So the focus of Origin is the reconciliation of our food. How can you know exactly where your food comes from, but also be a conscious partaker in your food system. Isn't that crazy?
It makes sense.
It's the thing that you consume, like the thing that we put in our body every single day is food. So like if you can understand where it comes from, what it is, and bring that intentionality to something as simple as food, I feel like we as a species would be able to raise our consciousness for sure. So Origin is something my wife and I have been producing for the past year and a half, and 80% of it has been filmed in the United States. And we're focusing on filming here in Sri Lanka in 2024 to bring in a perspective of our Vada tribes. And we're interviewing 2 professors to kind of showcase the history of Sri Lanka's food system and our past, or history on how we used to farm, all of those components included in this documentary. And I feel like that small component would definitely help the global audience see Sri Lanka differently as well.
Brilliant. So do you plan on submitting this piece to the next award ceremony?
That's a good question. I'll hold my tongue for that for now, but there's a very high potential of this being on a global network.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about the challenges. How did you deal with this? It's not easy shooting a documentary.
Yes.
What did you face and how did you face it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege, again, my professional work is, apart from running the 2 companies, is also providing my cinematography services to other networks. So I've worked with some fantastic producers that have done some amazing shows, like, I don't want to mention the names because I don't want to name drop, but like they've worked on some pretty big shows, and the challenges are, like I said, is they have the infrastructure in place. They have the 5-man, 10-man teams to tell these amazing, professional documentaries. So for me, it was like, I'm going to invest in this myself. Everything that I've earned, I'm going to put back into it. We've had one fantastic sponsor that came on board, and we chose not to go directly with a network at the start because we didn't want that to be that narrative to be controlled. So we chose to invest in ourselves, invest in this particular documentary, and then take it to the network once it's completed. So once we're done filming in early 2024, we're ready to take this to shop.
So when will this be released and where will it be available?
So that's a very good question, which again, I'll hold my tongue on. But yes, we can look at the 2025 season for this to be released, and Sri Lanka can be very excited about it.
All right. So what is your final message to all of us today? You winning this award is something that Sri Lanka really needed, bringing in some hope to the industry, because there are many people who look up to aspiring individuals, and winning an Emmy award on such a level, being the only Sri Lankan as well, means so much to not only Sri Lankans living in the country, but living around the global arena as well. So
I do have to take a moment to just thank the people that gave me the opportunity. I do have to thank my good friend Rick Rose, who invited me into his company, and his brother Mark Rose as well, and giving me the opportunity to help showcase my skill set and showcase Sri Lanka's skill set on this global platform, and eventually make that win. My friends Portia, Reagan, fantastic producers and editors, and the rest of the team that had contributed to this amazing win. And I want to be very specific that the purpose of this win is to bring that back here and really just lift us up into a place where we know we can actually get to that space. And you don't have to leave the country to win something global. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honored that you're having your first interview at the place where you started as well. Something I didn't know. You're planning on revealing it as a surprise.
I was planning on revealing it as a surprise, but our camera friends revealed it early. But that's cool. I mean, honestly, humble beginnings, and it taught me a lot. All of these stories. I do have to thank my wife, who's been by me for 7 years.
She's sitting right here.
Sitting right here.
Yeah.
My church, Wildlife Church, has been a huge part of my upbringing here as well, to keep a very conscious and clear mind. And how we're going to direct our future, for sure.
All right, so that brings us to the end of this exclusive discussion that I managed to have with Jason Rajasinghe. He won the award for the Outstanding Achievement for Lifestyle at the 65th Annual Chicago Midwest Emmy Award Ceremony. And thank you for taking the time of your schedule to join us today. And I didn't know that you worked here. So thank you for that wonderful surprise, and it's lovely to know that your first interview, as soon as you landed in Sri Lanka, was also done at ITN.
Absolutely.
So wishing you nothing but the best, and congratulations once again on behalf of ITN. Wishing you nothing but the best for the future and for everything that you are doing for our country.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the end. Join us again for another exclusive interview that will definitely come your way.